Hey there YouTube, CJ's here with another Cleric tutorial video. The patch currently is 2.6, hotfix number 4. So we're going to get into 5 stages of this tutorial. The first one is going to be the spec and where you place points. Second one will be macros. Third stage is going to be your rotation. Fourth will be buffs and explaining what that is. And fifth one will be typically just some problems you may run into when you're first starting out, or anything else. Just some simple questions that I may be able to answer during the video. Now, for the first side note that I have here, as a healer or in any spec of a cleric, I strongly recommend going through your ability book and reading what each spell does, because it's very important to be very fluent with basically what you're doing. You know, it's important because a healer is, one of the most important people in the raid. They're keeping everyone alive, so very important you know what you're doing and, how it affects everyone else around you. So enough of that. We're going to jump right into the spec. For you non-Storm Legion owners, or Soul of the Storm Legion, which would be Defiler, don't worry, it's not necessary. You can change it to Warden if you would like, if you can't have Defiler. But if you do have the souls, I recommend Defiler for the extra buff Rage Blight. So, we're going to fall into the 61 Sentinel tree and 15 Purifier. Now, the reason we do Purifier is for the Healing Flare, an extra buff you get, Sign of Wrath, and the Bubble, which isn't so important, but most important is the 10% Wisdom and the 10% in Searing Heat that you put, which is going to increase your single target healing done by 10%. Now, there are a couple loopholes I will explain to you that even though you cast a single target spell, it will heal more than just one person. So it's affecting some AoE spells as well. I'll get into that eventually. So go ahead and pause the video and get this spec real quick, and come on back. Okay, assuming that you've got the spec now, we're going to move over to the macros. Now, don't freak out, don't pause the video, because all of these macros are in the description. All you have to do is highlight them in the description, Control C as in cat, go into an empty slot in your macros in game, and Control V as in Victor, and it will paste the macro for you, saving you a lot of time and headache having to pause and play the video. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through of the spells, because if I tell you too much of what they do, you're not going to read what they are. And like I said, I want you to read what your spells do because it's important. So this is your Insta ship button, which is, yes, you can laugh. If somebody's going to die and they're very close to death, this is the macro you want to use. It's going to do an instant cast, very powerful heal. You, yes, have to click the macro twice. If you're questioning, some people that are new to macros may think because you put 2 spells in one button, you only have to click it once, and it does them all. That's not how macros work. You have to double hit the button for both spells to go. If there are 3 spells, you have to hit it 3 times for each spell to run through. Enough with that. Your next macro is your AoE Heal. This just has an instant cast AoE in the beginning and a casting one in the second. You can go ahead and read through what that spell does. There's Divine Call and Healing Communion. Go ahead and kind of read through your macros as well when you're doing your ability reading. Your third macro, which you don't necessarily have to have, it's more of an efficient way of healing, though I recommend it, is the mouse over UI, meaning you don't have to click a raid frame or party member to heal them. You simply highlight your cursor over their raid frame or party frame and click the macro, and it will heal them, which is very nice. Your fourth macro is a Healing Breath one, which is just a instant cast heal, and following that is Healing Flare, which is also an instant cast, but when Healing Breath is on cooldown, it will just go straight to the Healing Flare, which is very important. The not so important macro out of this entire one would be the Bubble one. As a Sentinel, it is very important to understand you are not a Purifier. You do not use bubbles. You just happen to get one by an accident off of the spec. Wasn't intended, that's just how it happened. The only time you will ever use this macro is pre-combat. You will bubble up your tank and any of your other allies that you feel like. But when you're in combat, don't even mess with it, because it's more important to just heal somebody than bubble them. So with that said, we'll move over to some very important macros, which are the Healer's Haste one and the Hope one. First off, we have the Healer's Haste, which is for somebody that had planned damage taken. So if you knew the tank was going to get hit hard, you want to use this one first, if that makes sense. Just let me explain the second one and you'll get it. The second macro is Null's Hope. This is for somebody typically that didn't do their job correctly. They stood in AoE or got cleaved like an idiot. You want to use this one. Null's Hope is going to make the next 5 spells you cast 50% quicker. So it's get them up faster and keep them alive, versus Healer's Haste is you get them up faster, but it's not as powerful. And that's just that. The last macro, not necessarily needed because it's only got 1 spell in there, is your Dispel AoE macro. It's the Empowering Light. It's 10 people. That's that. So after you've got your macros, we'll move over to Bendable Plastic, as I call it, rotation. You know, you just kind of form to whatever your raid needs or in the moment of what is going on. What you're going to have to pull out of your ability book will be the spell Healing Invocation, and any other spells that you will have to pull out of the ability book, which you can find here under one of these 3 tabs. Your first one is Healing Invocation, which is down here. It is your main spam heal. You want to use this one over anything else, because it's just, you know, it doesn't eat so much mana, and it's just kind of that casual keeping somebody alive. Now, say somebody got hit or something silly, but they didn't take a huge amount of damage, where you need to necessarily quit targeting your tank and heal them. With the Healing Invocation, you can just use the Spot Heal, which is the Healing Breath macro, or the Healing Flare macro. All you have to do is mouse over their little player frame and heal them. You don't have to click on them. So that moves us over to the not so important but kind of important macro, the Bubble. You only use this, like I said, before the fight starts, so I'm not going to really touch on that. That's all that needs to be known. One of the other macros that you have that's important is the AoE one, because even though that you're not a Warden and you're not healing everybody, it's always nice to help out your Chloro or Warden. Also, if you're doing a 5-man, this is a good way to get everybody back to full. Now, for the more so important macros, as I would say, you have your instant shit button, which should be hotkeyed. For some reason I do not. It's the Touch the Light macro, and it's to get somebody up to health quick enough. Another spell you're going to be using is the Fullness of Life. You'll pull this out of your ability book. It's the full heal, basically. Very important to have. So that moves us over to the Healer's Covenant. You also pull this out of your ability. It's known in a macro. Don't macro this one with anything. So that's that. It reduces the damage taken for 40%. Our next ability is Vigilance. This basically is only 15 seconds, so it's kind of planned damage, unfortunately. But if they're under 20% health, they will get 5,000. My number is going to be a little different than yours because I have probably more or less spell power than you. So don't freak out about that if the number is different. Then, like I said, you have your Healer's Haste macro and Null's Hope macro. I already explained what those do, so it's good to have them somewhere on your bar. Then we move over to the Dispel macro. You already know what that does. It's just an AoE Dispel. Good to help out your Piri for dispelling. Now, another one that is pretty important, it's your mana regeneration. It's the Reverent, and it's basically 5% mana per second, and you can channel this basically infinity. I would only use this or recommend this during downtime. If you are in a middle of a fight, it's more efficient to use a mana potion, instead of sitting there and channeling and wasting time. Now, if obviously it's on cooldown, then you know what to do. Our last spell on our bar is the Life's Return, which is your battle res. So that's pretty much it, you know, for the spells and whatnot. So we'll go on to stage 4 of 5 in the tutorial, which is going to bring us to the buffs. So I'm going to do a quick run through of this because I want you to read this buffs again. I'm going to alliterate on that because very important for you to know what each one of these does. So your buffs are going to be Healer's Blessing, Faith's Rewarded, Marked by the Light, Sign of Wrath, Rage Blight, Light of Redemption, and Wrathful Embrace. Now, the only thing I have to really talk to you about is this Light's Redemption. It is a tether ability, which means you want to click on your tank and then cast this buff because it will tether you and him. So every time you cast Invocation to heal, it will heal him, and since you're targeting and healing him and you're already tethered to him, it will also heal you. So instead of wasting time clicking on yourself, healing yourself up, and then going back to the tank, just keep healing the tank repeatedly even though he's full health, and you will get health returned from that. So that's pretty much the spec. Some minor questions that you may run into is we're not very mobile other than, you know, our spot heals. So yes, it is important. This spec is for more or less standing still and doing stuff, but the only mobile part about the Sentinel is our spot heals, AoE instant casts, and more or less the negating damage part, which would be your Null's Hope, Healer's Haste, Vigilance, Healer's Covenant, and your Fullness of Life. That's pretty much the only major question that I get with the spec is the mobility. Other than that, it's pretty set forward. Like I said, it takes time to learn this, so don't grab the spec and jump right into raid. I don't recommend that, even though I've seen people do it. Not a good idea. Just learn the spec, take the time, run a couple of experts before you use this really anywhere else. It's fun, you know, it's a good spec. I have a lot of fun with the Sentinel. If you're not happy with your heals done or heals per second, just give it a little bit. It's a good spec. You just have to learn it, as like I said. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching, and keep up to date with the rest of your specs going to my channel and grabbing any of the other ones. I will be covering everything but the Justicar, which is the tanking role of the Clerics, because I do not know enough about it to help you out or even explain it to you. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you around.